actual functioning members in the...
No. There always needs to be a process.
Right, that's really what we would like to...
But you need 3 people
figure
to
out.
do the work.
Right.
If you're going to have more than 3, you're going to spend all of the time philosophizing and arguing, and everybody getting up and saying things that have no real meaning, but just to say it.
We couldn't set it up so that there was, the jobs were as simple as possible so that people could say, take the job for maybe a few months and then somebody else would replace them. Couldn't
No,
be
a
simplified
year is a
enough?
minimum. 2 years is better. So take you a year to learn how to do that job right. This isn't...
Because of the money mostly, right?
No, when I'm talking about work, it's only, you're talking about 2-3 hours a week or something. It's not 18 hours a day or something.
So what's so difficult? I mean,
It's like being a secretary.
Well,
It takes 3 months
well,
to
the
really
best bet-
realize yourself with all.
Sure, till you learn shorthand and typing, by the time you've learned it, someone else has to come and start all over again. If you want to keep training your successors, fine, sure. But I won't train each. I'll train the first group, and not the second group.
but is it possible so we could set it up that we might try to do that instead
You
of?
can do whatever you like to do.
Yeah.
The best thing to do is ask me what to do, let me tell you, and then do whatever you like.
Okay.
And then, if you do whatever you like, you'll be back here next year or 2-3 years later, and ultimately you end up doing what I'm telling you. I don't want to sound dogmatic or tyrannical, but I'm going down your path about 100 times in the last 20 years.
Right. Good.
I had the same group like you in here about 7 years ago. Same thing. Oh no, we want to do it this way. We want no power.
What kind of artist group?
No. It was a group, it was women, they came in here in New York State Arts Council, in the building, sent them down here for me to help them. They want to get a grant, and they won't give them a grant, so they come in screaming and yelling, and says, okay, well, I'll fill out this application for you, so it'll work. I said, who's the president? We don't have no presidents, we don't believe in that, we do everything by committee. Well, which of you 3 is going to sign this thing? Well, we all signed 3 together, and none of us. I said, all right, now what do you want to do with the money when you get it? Any art gallery don't show women's work, so we're going to throw grenades in there and blow them up, and we're going to...
This
I said, you can't put this into your application. Do it. When you get the money, do what you want, but for the time being. I said, oh no, the hell with that, you men, you're always trying to screw us. I don't know why they sent us to a man. It should have been another woman helping us on it. I said, well, this is the way to do it, and it'll really work. And they wouldn't do it, and they went out, picketed 3-4 months later, up and down the streets here, and screaming for a week or 2. Then about 8 months later, came back again and said, okay, I'm the president. We filled the form out. They got a $25,000 grant. I think the name of that group is National Organization of Women.
Oh, now?
Yeah,
but look where they are.
But they learned the establishment rules. Just learn the rules. Don't comply with it, but learn it.
Yeah.
Right. So, all I can do is tell you what the rules are. Try to be aware of it. So, every question you ask me, I'll give you the easiest way of fulfilling it. If you want to do it, great. If not, go out, do whatever you think is best. And I'll always be here whenever you want to come back. If you succeed that way, great. Then I will have learned something too.
Well, so what we've decided we want to do is we want to be a nonprofit corporation.
Right.
And in terms of the groundwork that is already set for being a nonprofit corporation, we realize we have to go, we can't change the law about the way nonprofit corporations are set.
Exactly.
So
Recognize that and play that
right,
game.
and then if we have our group structure built differently so the corporate heads are in name only, that's our business, as long as we have 3 people and a president, right?
But see, if the three people sign, legally, does that give them any more?
No.
No, it doesn't.
What is it that you want to do? That's where we really should say, what do you want to do? Tell me what you want to do now, and then I'll tell you how to do it.
Well, we want to be a loose enough organization where...
No. What do you want to accomplish? What's your purpose?
Well, for instance, if we want to do group shows,
Is it strictly a
public
co-op
spaces.
gallery you want to set up?
No.
Or what is it that you want to do?
It's
We want to leave it open enough so that we can do anything, but I know that sounds ridiculous, but basically that's what everyone is trying to leave it open
Possibilities,
to.
magazine
But we're
production,
interested, yeah,
film
in
production,
the production of art, you know, and art being an
Cooperatively.
ongoing
sponsoring,
thing.
traveling, performance.
I also think the
shows.
reason the corporation should be set up is to make the whole group eligible for grants.
Yeah.
I think
You
that's
can-
what it should be geared to.
Well, you're eligible for grants as individuals under CAPS and NEA.
But so there are many more,
individual.
there are many more.
Well, we were talking about using it as an umbrella organization for any group that wanted to establish some kind of project.
Can I have some of
We
that
just
too?
funnel
That
it
looks
through.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have yourself first?
Yeah.
No,
Right
we're,
here.
Oh.
I'll just do the next
Pass
one.
it around.
Oh, you have
I
a
already
glass
have a
already?
cup, sure, I know. With ice, and there's ice out there too. Well, the first thing you should do is make a clear list of what your purposes are. And if you think of that list as a destination, cities you want to go to, and you're the airplane with the passengers, and I'll be the captain or navigator, I'll show you how to get there.
Okay, well, so far we've decided that we want to establish cooperatively a magazine or printing.
You don't need a corporation for that.
No, anybody can do that, so far.
Well,
So
but
the
in
only
order to
reason-
get funding,
Why don't we
The
say
reason we're
everything
here
that we
is
wanna-
because we want to get a corporation to be eligible for grants. And as you know, there are many more grants available to corporations and nonprofit corporations and foundations.
Right,
as
the
there are to
first thing you
individual
do
artists.
there, any good
And
business.
that's I think that's the direction that should be
Right,
taken.
the first thing any good business does before you go into any business, and what you're doing as a business, is you do a market survey to find out whether, if you did set it up that way, can you get money?
Yes, I know you can.
Have you gone to New York State Arts Council, National Endowment, and others, and saying that if we were set up in such a way, would we qualify to get funding?
We would qualify if we have the right kind of. I mean, there are many artists who are involved in many different directions within their group that are eligible for a variety of different projects at the New York State Council, at the New York State Council on the Arts. I know that from my own experience. I've
A lot of
gotten
people have
grants
already gotten
from the
grants.
New York
Yeah,
State.
individually.
Ruben
you
knows
can
that.
You can still keep getting it as individuals.
Well, you could get
Yeah.
you could get a grant,
We're
for
talking about
instance,
it.
as an alternative space workshop program. That's one of the possibilities. I think there's.
You don't even have to be tax exempt to get it many times. I mean, Gemini and Tower, a
That's
lot
what it
of
was. Right.
people got grants and have to be tax exempt for it.
Well, and yeah, you have to be tax exempt.
Not under all of their programs, some of them you could. So the
New York
first
State
thing,
Council, you don't have to be. You just have to be a charitable
so if you
organization.
come to the conclusion that if you become tax exempt, because that's a harassing, bullshitting thing to become tax exempt.
But what if we want to do things like buy materials with a tax exempt status? I mean, doesn't that help?
a film
Yes.
cooperative,
Yeah.
a food cooperative.
You're
Why is
talking
it-
about
what-
sales
what is
tax
the
that you're
harassing
saving?
Yeah.
aspect of it?
Set up a company in Connecticut, invite all in Connecticut, and you save your sales tax. But there's enough other organizations who get a resale certificate saying you're buying it to resell it again.
Yeah.
There's no sales tax. And your total sales tax for the year might be $300 you're saving. Yet the bureaucracy you gotta put up with lawyers and accountants, and that's on forms that you gotta file, and bookkeepers and managers and all that shit, might cost you $2,000 a year. So you're not really saving, you're getting into really an established thing. If you felt by becoming tax exempt, you can get yourself between $30,000 and $50,000 a year from the Guggenheims and the National Endowments and all these foundations and the Ford foundations, go ahead and do it. But if you can go through all of this crap and have meetings and purposes and argue out what's the name going to be and how we're going to do this and who's going to be the officers and should 3 be responsible for the rest of us and how do we protect everyone, go through all that stuff for hours and hours and hours and end up getting $3,000 that you could have got as individuals anyway. It was ridiculous waste. So if you feel very sure that there are foundations ready to give you grants only if you were tax exempt, then by all means, go ahead and do it. And then, once you come to the conclusion that you want to do it, and then I have to tell you how you got to structure it so you would meet all of the IRS requirements and New York State stuff. And then after you all agree that you're willing to work within that sort of a framework, then the next thing besides, instead of trying to get tax exempt yourself, I have 5 or 6 tax exempt foundations already in existence, and you all could become an autonomous division of that. You become tax exempt overnight.
Yeah. Also, I mean, you can, for instance, do apply through a tax exempt
Yeah,
organization.
as another umbrella
Yes,
group.
and I think Artist Space is, for instance, one of them. I mean,
And
I
it's
talked to
many like
Colleen
that.
about that.
Yeah.
If you really, I mean, have a program together, suppose you as a group or we as a group could really find an organization that's already done
Well,
all
let me
that.
tell you, before Artist Space, no, Institute for Art and Urban Resource, that's the other,
Talk-
Right.
that's at PS1 Clock Tower. Before they became tax exempt, I got grants for them through another foundation to give them. So I had another group that was
Well,
able
why,
to fund.
why do they become tax exempt? They become
Because
tax-
ultimately,
Because they
they
want
were able to
grants.
get all the.
They want grants. That's their
Yeah.
very simple reason, and they get grants.
But they got 150,000 PS1. They got 25 from this one and 10 from that one. If you knew you can get it, go ahead and do it. But there's so many groups that start off say we were tax exempt. Wow, we get so much money, and then they don't. And then it's a hassle to liquidate it and close it up again.
Well, how do you know you can get it?
By what I said, a market survey.
And you have to
You
go
write
to
to
them
National
first.
Endowment. You do what you were going to do if you were tax exempt.
Well, you also
Or
you know,
write a letter saying to them, we are a tax exempt foundation under Section 501c3. We are trying to yakety yak yak. Can we get a grant from you? Say you already are it. If they write back, say, oh, sure, we want to give you money. Send us your determination letter.
But Jackie,
And
they won't write back that way. It's like everything else. You know, you have to get to know them. It's like
Sure.
2 or 3 years
Right.
before you get one. Then you have a track record, and they'll give you one. I mean, it's not a 1-year proposition. It's like something that has to be developed over
How
a period
come
of 3
you
or 4
sound more
years.
like me than I do?
Well, I have. I mean,
You must have been hit a few times too.
well, I have been. I know the whole thing. I have it in a non-profit space, and I've been
Okay, fine. Then you know
operating
that's
and gotten grants for it. Too.
it looks like
So
it
it's
works
not
so
just
easy.
something because it's not because you are a non-profit at this point.
But you
of
get it
corporation, you get a
automatically,
grant
yeah.
next year. It's something you have to work on, like everything else. But
Well,
then if you work
nobody
on it-
was thinking otherwise.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
No,
I mean-
ultimately, it will happen and you will succeed. But I'm just saying,
Exactly.
be aware of all these
I think
details.
it's just a matter
not
of
automatic.
of
It's,
enduring. It's all it is.
Exactly.
It's all it
Patience.
is. You
Well,
have
I
to go
don't-
on for
it-
3 years and then you get it.
Let me say 2 words. I don't know how many of you ever heard these 2 words. Perseverance furthers. You know? Okay. I see we read the same books.
Is that Rachel and Audrey?
No. I Ching, I Ching.
What is the?
Mhm.
Those 2 words appear in about 42
All
of the
pages
64
cracked.
It
chapters.
Yeah.
also appears
Mexicans.
on all the fortune cookies.
Really? That's a new trend. So, if you decide what you want to do, whether it's in magazines and galleries and the production of art, selling of art, all this stuff, you can do anything you want to do, but then I have to give you those words that will fit the stupid establishment words. And then if you're willing to subscribe to those idiotic words for a short period of time just to get the stupid thing through, then you'll have it. That part is easy if you're willing to.
So in other words, if we write up proposals that our group can stand by, then we should
Yeah.
come to you with
What I'd be
proposals?
willing to do is edit those things, change it around.
Right.
Well, what kind of proposals are? 'Cause
Well,
we already
proposals
brought up-
for what we want to do as a group
Well,
that's
then-
specific, and I mean, we all have ideas for what we want to do.
There's a great book called Russell Sage Foundation Directory. I think it's like $12, maybe it's $15 now, and it lists every foundation all over the country, and it's in the
Right.
U.S. too, building on Madison Avenue.
It's on the 88 up and up to the
888
fountain.
to
Yeah.
Foundation
Yeah.
number.
Something like that. It's listed Russell Sage, Russell Sage
Got that?
Foundation. Oh, by the way, my name is John Jones. Social Security number is 0000000.
What do we?
And I was not present at this meeting. So that's the first thing. You get the book, and that tells you who wants to give money to the organization all over the country. We're set up just to do that.
Yeah, I've
The
looked-
Kaplan
yeah.
Foundation. And then what we should do is then figure out some simple sort of a letter saying reorganization, our tax exemption pending, interest doing yak, 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 yak. And what we want to do today does not exist, and this will help artists, the art community, the government, the human race, this, and everything else.
Negroes and Puerto Ricans.
Oh, them too?
Right, well,
Jeez,
you know,
oh,
that
shit.
might lose our grant, but.
Leave out the Irish then.
Right. Sit up here.
Sorry.
Too bad, Kelly. Next time.
Kelly, let's see. Stand.
Police work.
Bones and police work.
So that the,
You have
and
to
then if you
join
get
them.
replies back saying, yes, we'd like to meet with you and talk about it, and zing, go tax exempt. But if you want to go tax exempt during the interim, it's okay too.
Well,
And then I will tell you the things you need now to go tax
What you're
exempt.
saying is more or less that if you have a valid program and a valid proposal to any grant-giving organization, it could be channeled
Yes,
through
right.
It could be channeled through an existing one.
Yeah, if not your own, yeah.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, right now you feel if you were tax exempt, you get all the money. Find out if you could. If you can, then become tax exempt. Absolutely.
If it's done right, I think these organizations, this kind of forming.
And becoming tax exempt, you can get tax exempt easy enough. You can do it through the volunteer lawyers for the arts, and
Yeah, but
James.
they are not that good either. You know, they did made just.
They're very good. I think they are an excellent organization, one of the best that are around.
Well, they just made a mistake
They've
about
been-
corporations.
I've had
And they made that mistake about
Right.
the.
Let me tell you a little secret about myself. I do not talk bad about any organizations, whether dealers or government agencies or anything. I never attack anybody for commissions they make. I just enlighten them with omissions that they've made. I like to build to existing organizations and create new things over and above that what now exists. And because of that, the old buildings become obsolete and fall apart.
That's a policy I can wholeheartedly sympathize with, but it just happened to be that the volunteer lawyer of the arts did put the sale, thing in my non-profit corporation charter, and that might make me ineligible for internal revenue non-profit status. And that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, right, all right. But what I'm willing to be your filter. I mean, go through me before you go to them. And by the time you filter through me, it'll be automatic and very simple and easy.
So you're the answer to everything.
Well, you said it. I believe it. But rather than not say it, it sounds too pretentious. That's a
Better
funny
pull that
thing.
out.
Did you show that?
What about if we come to you with these proposals about all these things we want to do cooperatively? What if, so we do all those, and then later on we want to do some more. That's not a problem. I mean, we want to make up other. I mean, if we come to you with a.
No, you can do anything you want to do in this world if you do it the way that fits the establishment rules.
Or the law.
Well, let me tell you, I was probably, well, I don't know, why
Go
was a
ahead.
revolutionary, I almost said the greatest more than anybody in the world. And I was against the Pentagon and the establishment. And every time there was a rally, I'd go to Washington and I'd run into the goddamn building, try to knock it over, running head first, and I'd come back
The
and
Pentagon?
bleeding and bloody and all that. Walk back to the building, and not a dent. Bitch, I'm back, I'm walking, running twice as fast, come back twice as bloody, I was crippled. You look like a misfit, the goddamn building's still the same. What I did, I found an easy way. I go in the public library and I get the architectural plans. I can go to any major building and watch anywhere in the country. On the inside of the building, because you know how to get inside now, knowing the game plans and all, I can just lean on the right wall and other things fall over. And Samson did that once too. I mean, it's easy. Once you know where the weak spots are from the inside, it's easy. From the outside, it's impossible. So if you learn the rules and you want to comply with them, just to succeed, it's easy. It should never change your own lifestyles. No, what you're doing with your own life and your own art in own ways, that must never change.
Well, it would change. Say if we
No.
if we wanted to do something cooperatively, and ends up that one or two people are doing all the bureaucratic bullshit.
No,
Then
no, that
You know
doesn't
about the
happen.
Doukhobors in Canada? The Sons of
Nothing
Freedom?
can.
Well, they were a cooperative that moved from Russia to get away from the Russian oppression and came to Canada and didn't want to own their land well, they were given land by the Canadian government, but the government said 3 people had to sign for the land, and they didn't want 3 people to sign for the land. So they refused the land, and the government gave it to them anyway. So they burned down all their houses, burned all their clothes, and paraded naked in the streets, and they were all thrown in jail. But essentially their problem was the same, that they didn't want anyone to have more power than anyone else in the situation. I mean, it's a dilemma that's obviously...
No, it's not a dilemma. There are ways of circumventing all of those things.
Well, how can
You
we...
hit me with a problem each time before it becomes a real problem. I'll show you a simple solution.
Well, it's a real problem that we don't want one person signing all the checks. Say, hypothetically, if we have checks.
Let me show you how easy it is to get around that.
Okay.
You have 2 bank accounts. You have one account where all the money must go into that account. And in order to get money out of that account into the second account, 2, 3, 5, 8, 10 people have to sign a check to get into the second account. You only put 500 in there at a time, or 1,000.
Right.
There's one individual could sign checks. The most they could abscond with and make mistakes on is $500.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's good to know, because that's the kind of...
No.
If
No,
we
but
can-
every horrible problem you can ask me now, I've already faced so many times.
Right.
I don't want to sound terrible, but
Right.
but your organization number 117 or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And then there is simple solutions to all these things. If you just tell me enough in advance, I'll tell you what to do to make your life a hell of a lot easier. Many years ago, I got burned and kicked too many times. I don't want you guys to be kicked too many times.
How'd you get here again? What happened in the intro?
Oh. I've learned how not to get kicked and how to do this without all these horrible emotional things.
So quick, let's ask some more questions.
So what other? Give me your most worst terrible problem in the world. I'll tell you a simple way to solve it.
Well, what's the thing with the union? And we're also talking about becoming a corporation so that we could unionize.
Okay.
Unionize who?
Well, that was the other problem that we faced, and I thought it was artists, but...
Well, I tell you this, why it's so easy to solve problems. You can define the problem, the solution is so easy. I'll ask you enough questions to get a clear problem from you. By the time I'm finished, you'll know the solution too.
Well, for instance, if we were a union with a set of standards that we set up, for instance, so that the Institute for Urban Resources would be required to pay all artists the same amount rather than paying on a hierarchical pay scale. And our union was requesting that as one of our tenets for being a union.
Well, no, one thing I will not do is to set up one tax-exempt group to battle another tax-exempt group. It became tough enough for them to be where they are. And I will not help any group to fight another art group.
Well, it's not...
So that's one thing I'm not... If what you're talking about is trying to add to that, try to find ways of helping them fund more money so that it could accomplish all these other things, great.
Well, essentially, that's our premise, is to add to that, but criticism of an organization is not necessarily battling them. I mean, if they pay one person $100 to do a show and they tell somebody else we'll give you $10, and our organization says that as an organization we would all like 50, then that's not really battling, that's just setting up our own standards as an organization for what we work for.
All right.
Which isn't, I mean, it
but
could be a battle.
But what
then
other
it's
groups
their
do,
problem.
they'll attack that group. And they'll write letters to the National Endowment and the congressmen and to the governors. Oh, they're a terrible group. They won't do. If you want to sit at the session with them, and have Alana Heiss and Steve Reich and those guys sitting here, and you and Colleen sitting there, I'll mediate the thing and work out a very simple, quiet solution. But I don't refuse to have artists launder their dirty differences out in the public, because it takes me a lifetime to make this beautiful. Like John said before, he says, I love artists more than artists love artists.
You should read the quotes he's got about artists in there. Spiritual something.
But they're not, Alona and Steve Rocky aren't artists. I mean, I don't want to single them out, but more that if we want to set standards...
Same thing with museums. There's no artists on boards of directors of museums.
Right.
When an artist shows his work in a museum, the janitor gets paid, everybody, not the artist.
Right.
I mean, the guards get... I know all that. And it's terrible and horrible. But I don't want to go out publicly and attacking him. I'd rather meet with him. And I know ways.
Well, so I mean, that's what a negotiator
Sure.
does
Yeah.
with union bargaining.
Well,
I mean,
that's what I want to do,
right,
but not
that's-
if they refuse to. You're going to do a sit-in and throw rocks through the window.
Right, no.
I mean, the union doesn't do that. I mean, that's not
And
their-
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
No, but you should never ever do that.
Well,
See, I
Why?
So
why
you
you say
think
that?
strikes are not legitimate?
Yeah, rank
You
and
mean
file
so
strikes.
the coal
Anything-
miners shouldn't strike? They
absolutely
should.
not.
Why
I
not?
can't. I
Well,
don't.
let me
buy
tell you
that
why.
one.
I don't want to get into philosophies. I think actions should only be engendered, built out of love, never hate. If you're prompted to some action based on hate, it's wrong.
Yeah, but
If
don't
you're
you
doing
think the
something
way,
out of love, then it's fine and it's great.
but
marvelous.
in the case of coal miners, I don't think that the
Well, let's take
business
a case. Let's take a
establishment is
case in
acting out of
museums. I don't know
love.
coal miners. Let's talk about artists, right? Let's
Okay.
talk about what we're talking about. Let's say a museum doesn't want to do something to help artists.
Is that an act of love?
yeah.
What's that?
Is that an act of love?
Well, no, I can't condone museums, but I'm talking about artists. I'm only concerned with artists. I'm not there to help museums. I'm help artists. What I would do, if there's enough negotiation, I sat in the middle and tried. I'll take transcripts of this, where they called you shitheads and fuck you, we don't help you, and that sort of stuff. I'll take transcripts of that meeting to Claiborne Powell and John Bradovich. These are my closest friends in Congress. Say, hey, next time appropriations, museums come up, help museum out of knife because they're so lovely. They have helped us. Doing that, screw 'em. 0 this year, right? And that'll happen. Just as I'm doing it with love.
Yeah.
Qualified love.
Okay, I think we're
See what I mean?
talking
I mean,
the
I'm
same
giving you-
language.
yeah, of course we
basically.
are. See, the aims and the goals are the same, but I have a different route, and I've won with it. So, well, I'm saying, listen to my plan first, then go ahead and do what you want. I don't care what you do when you leave here. See, right now, I'm very intimately involved with all of you. I really want you to succeed in every way I can. As if this, my whole life is devoted to you in this room. As soon as you walk out, it's devoted to the next group that's coming in, until you come back again. Then it's with you again. Are you this group or the next one?
This group.
Do you know the people in this room? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. No, because there's someone else coming later.
Oh.
What should we do? Air conditioning? Or see, I got some more folding chairs out there. Get some more cups and.
Perfect.
So, how'd you make out Sunday?
Oh, good.
Yeah?
Yeah, good.
Everything worked out
Oh,
okay?
yeah. We had a lot of fucking people.
Oh shit, really? Yeah, I didn't think so because it was bad weather. Was
I know, but it didn't start raining until after all the big storm. We got everything put back in the truck.
Well, I heard about that.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, but you know, so I was in a mood. I was in a mood to get home, get some sleep. That's what I did. You know? I had supposed to meet somebody. I had an appointment. I didn't even go to it.
Boy, that's willing to do all this. someone should start doing wheels rolling to become, at least in New York State, not-for-profit corporations, and that qualifies you for New York State, at least anyway, as long as you file with the state. You don't need the federal.
Only to be a charity group, just to get eligible for charity.
Well, how do you do
Yeah,
that?
but you can't be charitable unless you show that you filed for New York State. You can't be helped with charitable unless you
I know
don't.
that I became a charitable institution before I was incorporated.
How?
You just talk to the Board of Social Welfare in Albany and filed the form and paid $25 at this point. I think it was $5 when I did it. And you become a charitable institution. I got it. That's how you become eligible for New State Compounding Arts Grant, not for NEA grant. You don't have to incorporate.
But for NAA you do.
But wait a minute, you can do it through an organization that's already incorporated. And I personally feel that might be the better idea for this group at this point, because we are not really distinguished as a group at this point. But if we channel ourselves through like another organization, that has already a name, we can combine their repetition with their repetition we might add and get a grant for that.
I've been doing this more and more. What's your first name?
Stefan.
Well, Stefan said I've done this more and more with people now. It's so easy to become tax exempt overnight now. You're not friendly with Artist Space or PS1 or Institute of Art or Reserves There's 10 or 12 organizations that you might fit under and be compatible with. And you have your own bank account, your own board, your own directors, and be completely autonomous.
And you then might be happy to add whatever proposal we have. We just have to think about a solid proposal. It might be great because it makes their program proposal more
it's better for them
attractive,
too.
and it will help us and help them at the same time. As much, and I don't think there have to be any strings attached.
Then you have your own autonomy, and then maybe that's the way you do that immediately, and you apply for grants. If you get it, then you do your own tax exemption. Then you know you really.
So then you have a record, and you can say we have already gotten funds through another organization. Now we're going to do it ourselves.
No chance.
I think in the situation we're in right now, especially, the one sector of our interest grant of the state to have it done.
Maybe you could say
It's a lot of things. Alright, but see, it really gets unwieldy when you have a whole gang of people and each one really unique, especially with artists. Every artist has his own feeling and idea of how you want to do something. And I think at this point, what you've got to do is come back to me once you've all agreed what it is you want to do. You want to become tax exempt yourself. You want to be a corporate tax exemption. You want to do what Stefan says, just do that simple routine thing, just for New York State only. You want to become part of another group that is tax exempt. You want to write up a request for money, and we can start sending it out and see what the results are. You want to write up your purposes and fill out all of the forms necessary to become tax exempt, which means who your officers are, who your directors are, and what your purposes are, and how you plan to raise money, how you plan to spend the money, and what you plan to do as an organization. And once all that is written down, then I could say, yeah, you could become tax exempt, or no, impossible, because you're really commercial and you're competing with other commercial organizations. And if you change it, then you can do it. So maybe the best thing, why don't you just keep asking me questions and I'll bounce back. Because as more and more people come, we're just going to keep repeating things we've already said. Unless if you want, I can step out from it and you can bring everybody up to date on what we said. Because I have someone else I got to talk to in a few minutes. So what's your preference? Well, why don't you all talk amongst yourself, and then decide whether you want to hang me or shoot me.
long have you been here? What did you talk
Basically, that we have to research what potential grants we could get and what their requirements are. If we want to be nonprofit, it can be, but it's a lot of bureaucratic bullshit, like accountants and lawyers. We can go through another organization overnight in order to get grants immediately
Right.
while we're establishing
Begin.
ourselves. And then, or we can get nonprofit status, but we can write foundations and find out now whether we'd be eligible for grants or not. They're more likely than not.
I know by now, maybe, I know something about foundation checks. You have to be a non-profit organization to be eligible.
Right, but what he said was we can write and say we're non-profit, even though we're not. Explain what we
No,
represent
they
and
check
see if they'd be
He just said
open
that we
to
could do that, get the
to,
information as to whether we were eligible
giving us
for
money
grant
if
or
we were
not.
I know you're
eligible,
not.
and then
I'm
work
telling
on
you right now
that
you're not.
premise.
Bobby.
No, but he said we could
said they'd
write
tell
and
us.
say we're nonprofit or we're in the process of becoming nonprofit. Would you be interested in
not.
funding us?
No,
Well,
they
then
are.
I mean, that's ridiculous, Stefan.
You just said
Assume
that
that.
they would only fund nonprofits.
Yes,
So they
Not,
are
but not
interested.
all foundations only fund nonprofit.
legally non-profit. It's not just by.
Okay, so we
intention.
say we're nonprofit, we say what we represent, and we see if they're open to.
No, they are not.
Well, I think what we should discuss now is what we want to ask him, otherwise we're just wasting
I don't
his
think,
time.
I think we
And if we
should
don't have
decide,
anything to
I
ask
think
him-
it's more important to go back and decide what kind of grants we want to apply for. and
Well,
research it and then
agreed,
see.
we need to do that. Is there anything we need to ask him besides that, since we all know how to find information about what grants to apply for, and
It
we know
seems
where
like
the grant
he's answered
foundation.
the questions, the basic questions, how we go about doing that, don't you think?
It's like Christmas.
We're at the point now where we have to come back to him and say, we want this grant, this grant, and this grant, what's the simplest way of going about doing it?
And what about
Then we
public
should-
media grants? I mean, most people here are doing public media grants. You don't want just an art audience, and you aren't getting things on cable television or, into other groups.
Right, we already
That's-
sort of
and we
talked
all-
about that
yeah.
group, and we want that.
Right,
we have to
so
look into
that's,
it.
public media is a large
But
number of the
basically-
grants come from NEA, which is non-profit.
I mean, what he's saying to us is figure out what grants we want, tell him why we want it, and he'll
Find
tell
out
us
what
how
they
to get them.
require.
But is there anything else we want to ask him? I mean, do we want to ask him about how we should structure our group? I
That
mean,
seems like we have to.
Essentially, we can structure it if we wanted, and we can just find the language.
Well, we know some things about the group right now. We want an open membership, right? And that we don't
Well, the
want to
other
be,
thing
we
is-
don't want to be involved in real estate.
but those aren't, any of those aren't
The other
issues that
thing he said was
concern
that you
him.
have to have
No,
three
but they
people
concern the
that.
Us.
nature, the kind of thing we want to do.
Well,
as
for
far as-
instance, in terms of president, vice president, and secretary, there's no way we can get around that according to him.
Legally.
Legally, there are ways,
have to be
technically,
three.
we can avoid the
Well,
money
we-
problems and all that.
President, treasurer.
I mean, for instance, we can
Secretary.
stop the president from signing checks for themselves by having two bank accounts. He said one bank account is a group account where you put all your money in, and the other account, 3 people or 8 people sign the checks, but you can only put in $300 a time or something in that, so that essentially we can protect whatever monies we get collectively so that nobody does
Robin-
acquire too much power.
Yeah.
That's
Robin,
information he gave
just
us.
For one, just for one
But
very
in terms-
basic practical point. 8 people signing a check. you
I'm
know,
not saying, I'm not giving a point of
No,
view
that
about
was-
that, I'm repeating what
That
he
was
said.
perfectly logical. He
It has
was
nothing
saying
to do
that
with my
there's an account with most of the money, and then the smaller account, and say every 3 months, you take some money out of the big account, put it in the small account. So you take the time to get all the signatures, and then whoever deals with the small account for that particular period of time is responsible for it.
Yeah,
And that
that's
would
a
be
good
one
idea.
person.
That's a good
And
idea.
if they screw up, then the next, just get
Then you
another
don't lose the
person.
whole basket.
Yeah.
But no, I'm talking about in terms of what it is, there are some things that we can tell them fairly specifically about what it is that we want now, right?
Well, see, he doesn't really want to hear that.
Okay, what does he
No,
want to
wait
hear?
a minute. You wanted to hear it, I
What
think.
we want.
But we didn't have anything to say.
I thought that's what he asked before he left, and that's what we were supposed to discuss.
We didn't have any.
Well,
I mean,
okay.
he asked
Like
what you're
what?
forming for, and which we all just didn't know what to say.
So
That's
what?
the basic truth.
Yeah, that's basically.
Well, we know that, I think we're all pretty sure that we need to form a non-profit corporation, right? I mean, we have to.
At some point.
At some point, and the sooner we do it, the sooner we will have an entity to work with.
We have the entity though. One
Yes,
is
but
to
it's not
decide
illegal,
what we
it's
want
not
to
a-
do with it. But what
The
he
other-
was saying was we don't,
Need that.
immediately we don't need that. Because we can go, if we want a grant tomorrow, we can go through another organization.
Right.
So we have the entity and just.
And the people. Okay, well, do you think that that's what we want to do, go through there? Are there any organizations we could go through?
Yeah, there's a lot of organizations.
Well, it's not just
The-
like that. You know, you
well,
don't just go
We can
to
go
up
through
to
that,
Helen
we can
Reno
go
and
through
Alana
Artist
Heiss.
I'm sure, we can go through, La Mama probably, I mean, there's a lot of places we could go through.
But-
Until we, but that, I
When
don't
we
even
have a
think that's
reason to go
important,
through anybody.
You know?
And that has to, you know, you just
And I
don't
don't-
walk up there in one afternoon and
Well,
tell them,
nobody's
hey, we
talking
have
about
this
that.
$60,000 proposal. I mean, they have to be really approached properly and ask, and then they'll take care of us too. You know, it's something that has to be done right.
No,
Very-
well, we
very
can do
proper.
that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
You
Does
have to-
anybody want to do it wrong?
Well, baby, yeah, but it's not just like there are like 10 like non-profit operations where you can do it. You have to really ask them to do you a favor in some ways. You know?
Well, we don't want to go through Art and Urban Resources, and we don't want to go through the kitchen.
Well, I think artists.
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
part of
artists
a
live for
non-profit
3 months a
corporation
store.
Right, I
that's
know.
totally open and
I
nobody knows
think
what's
that-
going
I
on.
think
It
that-
happens to be getting non-profit status, so
Yeah.
it's no, I mean.
But our chances of getting more money would be better with artist space
Yeah,
than they would
definitely.
with.
Definitely.
I think artists would love to do it. They're really open and democratic.
I'd like.
Well, there's a lot of disagreement about that, but
Robert, I mean, I see. I'm doing
I
it
think
for
once
artist space,
we-
but I'm not saying it's ideal because I have to go up to Helen Reno, you know, and she signs everything and stuff like that. But that's what you have to deal with, and then you get a letter from the congressman, and it's addressed to Helen Reno, congratulating her for the great work she has done, and for the 3 Mercer Street
Well, I
Store
think that's
workshop.
terrible.
But that's what you have to deal with.
I
You know,
don't
what's
think,
the-
well,
what
I
the
think
fuck? The budget's
eventually we
budget.
don't have to deal with that, really.
Well,
I
or we
think
could
that's
say that we
terrible.
won't
But
do
that's
that
what
at all.
that's
right?
what means channeling your fund for another
Okay, so
organization.
you've done
That's
that,
what it
but
means.
once you've established, I mean, now, really, you should probably go out on your own, you know, and break off from that. You don't want to have a mother for
But
the
to
rest
deal
of
with
your...
your internal
Yeah.
revenue, you know, you have to get the nonprofit status.
Happy 70s. So what kind of questions you got?
Well, it seems like we're at the point where we have to come up with specific, we have to research grants and really come up with what we want to do,
But
and
is
then
there
we'll
any
back
other,
you.
see, the first time I think like sessions like this, the best thing is something that you call fact findings. You gather
It's a
as
yellow
much
one.
facts as you
Yeah,
can.
what about an open membership? Will that create any problems?
You must have an open membership.
As a
Has to be-
non-profit
It
organization?
has to be open to everyone, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I had this big problem.
how does that work in the sense of the Institute for Art and Urban Research, for example? I mean, what's open about it?
No, there's different artists showing there all the time.
Oh,
so
okay,
it's,
but
yeah.
in terms of
It's
the
open.
bureaucracy, that's not open. Do you know what I mean?
also they
We're
don't
not,
really
we're
have
not
membership,
intending
do
to,
they?
like, find a building or something and start a program in that particular building. That's not the intention.
No. Let me give you the first situation that I established. It was a dancer that was supported by various people who gave her money and had to pay gift tax on it. And then when she got money, she had to pay income tax on it. I told her you got to be tax exempt, you know? And it took me 2 years in Washington to do that. And that happened about 24 years ago. Her name was Margaret Graham. That was the first tax-exempt foundation for a modern dancer, contemporary dancer. And they said what you're saying now. That's what they were. Internal Revenue in Washington, we were haggling and fighting for about 2 years. They said, well, this isn't open to the whole public. Nobody can come in and take classes. And so I had Louis Horst come in and give a special class. And in the curriculum, he said, we have posture classes or something. It never ever happened, but we made it available. You make yourself available to the general public. So what you do, like for example with co-op galleries, what you do is you have, say, one artist is showing his work that week, and every Thursday night you open 2 extra hours, and it's like a workshop thing. So everybody comes off the street, and that artist that night says, okay kids, you pick up for 25 cents each, you take this palette of paper, and this is the way you do this, and this is the way you do that.
So it means that you have to have something public going on, but it doesn't mean that anybody can become part of the bureaucracy of the organization.
Oh, no. But there are ways of doing that too.
Right.
There are ways of doing that.
When we're talking
Yeah.
about open membership, we're talking about membership in the organization, not people that we can, not the public we contribute to.
See, the way you do that is with teachers. All the artists that now exist become teachers of the organization. They're instructors. They're enlightening the public in art forms and art methods and so on. So every time they have a show as a co-op gallery, they show the public how their art works as an educational thing.
But for instance, if we were doing a magazine and we want the magazine to be non-editorial, open to anyone who contributes, I don't know what my question is.
The only problem is
that would
advertising.
be-
With a magazine, the only problem is advertising.
You also don't need a corporation.
Well, the
to run
one
a
that we
magazine.
wouldn't want to do advertising in, we'd want to get granting to do this kind of magazine.
It's like 7
But see,
days.
once you give me all the things you really want to accomplish, I'll probably like cut it in half and say, well, do this as a commercial business. And do this as a foundation.
And how does that work?
Well, you show me what you want to do, then I'll show you how it works. See, I'd rather cater to you rather than my telling you how it works and you trying to fit my structure.
What if you had something like a
I think
cooperative?
that what we're most interested in is achieving the most open, broad-based kind of system that we can,
Yeah.
one that would make us eligible for as many grants, both public grants and private foundation grants, as possible.
Well, what I said earlier is the only way you can accomplish that is by a market survey. You get this Russell Sage Foundation book, you start writing letters to them saying, we are a tax-exempt foundation, we want your support with this program or that program. Send them 20 different letters under 20 different names with different programs, see where you get the most support.
I would like to say one thing to that effect right away, because I know that much, that if you are not internal revenues tax exempt, you're hardly eligible for.
No. They would say, yes, we want to give you money. Send us a copy of your determination letter.
There
And
are
you
very
write
few
back.
organizations who give it. I mean, I just went through this book 2 weeks ago. I spent like 4 hours.
He's
working
saying
on
you
this book, got
pretend
the
you're
center.
non-profit and
You have to be
see what-
internal revenue, non-profit.
Right,
You're
but what
saying
he's
most
saying-
foundations
You
do
say,
not pay money.
no, you say we're tax exempt pending.
Then
And
they
then
say
they will write
if
back and
you
says, as
have
soon as
the-
you get it, we'll give you the money.
Right. You just find out if they're open
Because
to
you are
even
pending,
grant-
just
But
by-
you know what's
Then we know what
involved.
to
You know,
apply
you
for.
write them, and then you a year and a half
Just-
later you get your New York tax exempt. You get your like tax
No,
exempt.
no,
You're
no.
practical, Jackie. You know,
You can have-
The
practical.
point is to find
You
out
can have
whether
little-
they're willing to fund magazines. No. Record companies, yes. You know, are they willing to fund educational things? Yes, but
I
we're
tell
not
you what
willing
they
to fund
fund.
art
I
shows.
tell
you
exactly
know?
what they found.
Well, we
You
don't
don't
want to
know
know
all
that
the
now.
I know some of it about it.
No, the best thing is to find out what
No, wait a minute. I know some of it about it. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
well,
I
let's
don't know
not
all of
take
it.
up the
I know a
time
little
now.
bit about it,
That's
and it's some
valuable.
information everybody should
Granted.
know. You know,
Okay.
maybe.
Definitely.
What else would you suggest that we should do before
You don't
we
even want to hear it.
come
No,
back
I want to hear it,
we'll
but I
we'll
mean,
research the
it's not a
grants
closed book. Have you written every
and sort of try to decide the
No, but I
focus of
know
our
it's
group.
some principle
your
factor about it.
purposes, what you
But I
want to
don't
do.
think-
What he's
Purposes, what we
saying,
wanna
what
do,
you're saying is that you can't get
what
the
other
status right away.
what other things
You know
we
what
should
I'm
do.
saying is you can't get foundation money without
Yeah,
a chance.
and then I can
Right.
tell you which of
So
those
what he's
projects
saying
you don't
is
need a
write them,
foundation for,
pretend you have the
and what
status
you
and see
do,
if they'd even
which
be
are
willing to fund your
purely
idea to begin
commercially orientated, so you shouldn't even try to become tax exempt. Settle, kill your tax exemption right away.
But you can still do that. I mean, you can set it up so we can do that.
Well, then we
You
should
can still do
then we should
anything
just
you
go
want to
ahead
do,
and
but there'd be so many
establish it and
restrictions to
then
do
try
it. You
and-
Well,
go,
I mean, some of the things are like cooperative, like a restaurant or a cooperative. I mean, if you sell like food, if you sell something, then that makes you
no, you can be a cooperative gallery if you want to work on certain restrictions.
No, but
We can sell a magazine too and have it be non-profit.
So could you have a
If it only
non-profit
defrays printing, sure, why not? Food co-ops
Well, you
are
can even have
non-profit.
something that makes a profit if you turn the money back
Like
over
into
to the
the
organization. Is that correct?
Well, it's easier to do it the other way around. Tell me all the things you want to do, and I'll tell you what to do to make it
Right.
happen.
A magazine, a record production thing.
yeah, the cable TV programs.
Once you tell me clearly all the
Yeah, we should
specific
make
things you want to
specific
do,
proposals.
how you want to go about it, whether it's your own group or other people, how you want to produce it. I can have distributors, you can publish it yourself, you can raise money for that by yourself. Tell me where you need money to do the things you're doing. Are these records that are readily saleable or purely experimental? You know, once I know all of those things, if it's something that's money making, say, well, do that separately. And I know someone who might give you money as a part and invest in it.
Right.
And if it's purely experimental, then because I started a group, I don't know if you ever heard of a jazz composers group.
Orchestra?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Mike, what's his name?
Matlin.
Yeah, I did that. I set them up 15
They're
years ago.
non-profit,
Yeah. And I
which is
established them.
unusual,
Yeah.
isn't it? And how does
And
that
that-
work for
well,
them?
And they
There's a
produce
fellow
their
by the name
records.
of Tim Marquand.
Yeah, I know.
Right. I was with him like a week ago. There's a book called Who's Who in the World. And it lists, no, that I am it. And it lists the 80 organizations I've set up.
But how did it became more profitable for them to be non-profit? I mean, they're a record producing company which makes records that are on the market and they sell fairly well for independent company, but they're non-profit. So they just presumably salary the musicians and turn the money back over to the organization.
The Jazz Composers Orchestra. No, it's about 80 foundations I've already set up. I've set up organizations.
No, I work with
become
people that
tax
sell
exempt, and
records
3
through
years
their
later, the FBI
organization.
went after them.
Robert Rauschenberger.
The FBI went after
This
them.
is the R on the end?
Yeah. What is that?
Robert Rauschenberger Incorporated. Cons and new business ventures. What?
So
What
the,
about the production of videos and films for cable television? Is that,
if there's commercial companies doing it, you're in trouble.
What if it's us? Just us doing it? I mean, what if we're doing it? We're
what if
getting
we
the
want to
money.
apply for funds to
Yeah.
produce a film or video?
Well,
Or
first you have to really feel whether you really have the capability and resources to really do what you want to do. Don't start going into things saying you want to do and you'll never be able to do, and you lose your tax exemption because you're trying to get an exemption to do something you will never be able to do anyway.
well, you must be familiar with that thing that Keith and Sunday and Liza Bear are trying to put together, where they're getting
With
their
who?
start. Keith, Sunday and Liza Bear
Yeah.
are trying to put together that
Keith, Sony, and who?
Liza Bear cable television program.
Yeah, oh yeah. See, okay, you still come up? Yeah, about 18 people.
We could start a shoe factory. Panthers.
You put bring your shoes on.
Okay.
Show it a slack shop.
Oh, could you?
You went like that?
I think we should get clothes designed.
Where are you
That
talking
automatic
about?
clothes.
Oh, no, I'm
What?
saying. Oh, I see what you mean.
Did he say that? I had a policeman, two policemen were sitting on a fence and they were looking at girls the other day. I was walking by and I said,
It's
wow,
barking.
wouldn't she be nice looking if she dressed differently?
Is that
Why you dress the way you do?
Because I don't know what kind of these people can break up. So I could say, wait on the corner, I'll pick you up with a cab or something.
God, there's more who's.
So if he's still there at 9, call me. And maybe you can get a cab and I'll wait for you downstairs here and go down to Wayne Street. Dwayne Church, yeah. I may still end up at 1 o'clock in the morning at Lafayette and Bond Street. Oh, so why don't you call me when you're ready? Sure. Good. Yeah, I'm fine. I call you. Don't mind.
When I leave, I have to go to the coffee
Sure.
shop.
Okay, so I don't hear from you. I'll call you like 10:30
What other
tonight.
questions do we have?
Great. And I'm running around.
You know, what I feel overall, my emotional response to all this, whatever we want to do, we can do now. You know?
Yeah.
But we gotta know how to
but-
do it.
Well, the first thing you have to define, I think all of you in this room should figure out what it is, and everybody agree on what you want to do, and why you want to do it, and how you're going to do it financially. See?
Well, why would the public media thing be such a problem? I mean, we said that,
No, it's not a problem, only if you're going to compete with commercial organizations that are now doing it. I say in a couple of 2-3 years, cassettes that go right into your own TV set, there's going to be a big commercial thing. I think RCA already has a system, and Sony's working on one. It's like pretty soon now, so commercial businesses are doing it, and they have to pay taxes.
Okay, but JCOA is competing with commercial record companies and they're non-profit.
Right, no, but we found ways. I'm saying we can find a way. They were willing to, like, prostitute themselves in certain ways, and they can do it. So when I show you what you have to do in order to accomplish it, and you're willing to do it, great, then you do it.
What is the
No,
advantage?
I don't wanna do
What
that.
is the advantage in that particular instance of being non-profit as opposed to?
No, because they got grants, and Tim and others who gave them money could deduct
The
it.
system now and the artist's relationship to the art world is that the artist is the person who ultimately controls the means of production. But unlike other systems, capitalist systems, where the person who controls the producer, right, hires salesmen and people like that to actually take care of the distribution of the product. But in the artist situation, somehow the artist ends up working for the salesman or the distributor, and the salesman.
All right.
And what?
Wait a minute, oh, never mind, I want to say something.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Can I say something before I go ahead of
Sure.
break? When you say the artist ends up working for the salesman,
And it's,
that leads into another question. I mean,
Yeah.
I won't get into that
okay,
argument now,
but
but
it's
that's...
more like the relationship of a pimp and a whore. I mean,
What is your first name?
Michael.
Michael.
But let me finish my question now. I want to know whether you think it's possible for the artist to reverse that situation so that as the person who controls and is responsible for production, he can actually hire people who are responsive to him and who do their job in the artist or the producer's interest, so that instead of being the I mean, it's almost as if you're exploiting yourself, right?
I see what you mean.
And that seems, I mean, for me, that's what I would like to do, and I think that basically that's what we all want to do, is gain control of our own product, not just in a post facto thing after it's sold, but from the beginning, so that we don't feel like we're working for the dealer or that we're working for the government, but so that those people are working for us and responsive to our needs.
Okay.
And what I'd like to do is form some kind of entity where we could actually hire accountants and lawyers or whatever those, whatever the the administrators, right, where we could hire the administrators to work for us and that we would conceptualize and produce. Is that?
Oh, no, absolutely, no. That's why I interrupted. I knew what you were saying. About, no.
I had to say
About 7 months, no. Now, everybody else didn't know what you were going to say. Right? 7 months ago, I was on a TV program with a fellow named Andy Crispo, gallery down 57th Street. No tapes. And, answer that question in 4 parts.
Sorry.
I try to get sorry. I'm glad.
We'll apologize a while and then we'll
No, I try to give you the most, the Holy Trinity.